Did you know the salmon fillet on your plate might naturally be gray? In fact, farm-raised salmon are not born with that appetizing pink hue. Their flesh is originally a dull whitish gray until farmers add a special pigment to their feed. Shocking, right? This has led to wild rumors that farmers inject salmon with dye or even paint them pink. The real story of dyed salmon is both more fascinating and more nuanced than a simple paint job. So let's dive into the truth about dyed salmon. From why we color farmed fish, to what it means for your health, and how it compares to wild salmon. By the end, you'll understand exactly what's behind that perfect salmon hue, and you might never look at your lox bagel the same way again. People have been catching and eating wild salmon for centuries, but raising salmon in farms is a relatively new idea. Salmon farming began as small experiments in the 1960s. By the 1980s, it had grown into a full-fledged industry in Norway, and by the 1990s, it expanded to places like Chile and Canada. Over the last few decades, salmon farming exploded. Today, roughly 70% of all the salmon we eat worldwide is farmed, raised by people rather than wild. Nowadays, farms produced far more than the catch from wild salmon fisheries. Why farm salmon? One reason is demand. Salmon became one of the most popular fish on the dinner table. In the US, salmon is the second most popular seafood, after shrimp, as of recent years. Wild salmon alone couldn't keep up with year-round demand. Wild catches are seasonal. For example, wild Alaskan salmon are mostly available only in summer. Farming provides a steady supply of salmon all year. It also made salmon more affordable. Wild salmon used to be a luxury, sometimes called the fish of the rich, but farming helped make it accessible to more people. But fish farming ran into a problem early on. People expected salmon to be pink. That bright red-orange color had always meant wild and high quality to shoppers, but farmed Atlantic salmon didn't turn that color on their own. Without help, their flesh was a dull grayish white. It didn't look tasty, and customers didn't want it. So farmers had to find a way to bring back the color people expected. So what's the difference? Wild salmon live free in oceans and rivers, eating whatever nature provides, like smaller fish, shrimp, and krill. Farm salmon are raised by fish farmers, first in land-based hatcheries and later in large ocean pens, like big underwater nets in coastal waters. Because of these different lifestyles, there are some differences between wild and farmed salmon. Wild salmon get their diet from the natural food chain, which includes crustaceans, little shrimp and krill, that contain color-producing nutrients. Farmed salmon are fed a nutritionally balanced pellet diet, and farmers include those same color nutrients in the feed to ensure the salmon's flesh turns pink-orange. We'll talk more about this nutrient in a moment. Importantly, the pink color does not depend on wild versus farmed. It depends on what the fish eat. In fact, even among wild salmon, there's variation. Most wild salmon have orange-red flesh, but a few wild king salmon, about 5%, are genetically ivory and have white flesh because they can't process the color from their food. So, salmon aren't always pink in nature, but the majority are, thanks to their diet. Both wild and farmed salmon are packed with protein and healthy omega-3 fatty acids, making them a great choice for a nutritious meal. Farmed salmon tend to be a bit fattier. They often have around 3 times more fat than wild salmon of the same size portion. Because of their controlled diet, that means farmed fish can actually have more omega-3s in some cases, though wild salmon are often a little higher in certain minerals like iron. Overall, both wild and farmed salmon are very healthy foods, and the differences in nutrition are minor for the average person. Many people find wild salmon has a stronger, richer flavor and leaner texture, while farmed salmon is milder and fattier, which can make it a bit more buttery in taste. The color of the flesh can also differ by species. For example, wild sockeye salmon are deep red, while wild coho might be lighter orange, and farmed Atlantic salmon are usually a pinkish orange. But again, color alone isn't a sign of wild versus farmed. It's mostly diet and species. Farmed salmon is available year-round and tends to be more affordable. Wild salmon is often only available fresh during specific seasons and can be pricier, especially the varieties with the deep red flesh. Many consumers buy farmed salmon for everyday meals and save wild salmon for special occasions or recipes, but it really comes down to preference and availability. In summary, wild and farmed salmon have different upbringings but share the common trait of being pink, protein-rich fish. Half of the salmon eaten worldwide now comes from farms, so it's good to know they're quite similar to their wild cousins in the ways that matter for nutrition and taste. How do you actually farm a salmon? It's a bit like ranching, but underwater. The process starts in a hatchery. Adult salmon lay eggs, and farmers hatch these eggs in a controlled freshwater environment. The baby salmon, called fry, then fingerlings, spend their first year or so in freshwater tanks or ponds. Here, they're cared for and fed until they grow to a sturdy juvenile stage called a smolt. After about a year, the young salmon smolts are ready to go to sea. They are transferred to large sea cages or pens in cool, clean coastal waters. Think of these pens as big nets or enclosures in a bay or fjord where ocean water can flow through. The salmon have plenty of room to swim. Commercial pens are often 97.5% water and only 2.5% fish, so the fish aren't packed in like sardines. Salmon naturally like to swim in groups, so if you see them bunch up, it's not because they're overcrowded, it's their normal behavior. In the ocean pens, the salmon grow for another year or two. Farmers feed them daily with nutritionally balanced pellets that contain fish meal, fish oil, plant proteins, and, importantly, astaxanthin, the source of that famous color. More on that next. The salmon are monitored to keep them healthy. Farmers check water quality and watch for any signs of disease or stress. If a salmon gets sick, farmers may treat it, just like a vet might treat a farm animal. Though the use of antibiotics is strictly regulated in many countries. Norway, for example, has almost eliminated antibiotic use in salmon farming. When farmed salmon reach a harvestable size, often around 10 to 15 pounds, which takes roughly 2 to 3 years from hatching, they are humanely harvested. The fish are then processed in a plant, cleaned, filleted or left whole, and packed on ice, and shipped out to grocery stores and restaurants. By farming in multiple locations and staggering the production, producers ensure fresh salmon can be available any time of year, not just during wild salmon runs. This whole process is called aquaculture. Salmon farming today occurs in many parts of the world that have the right cold water conditions. Norway, Chile, Canada, Scotland, and more. It's a global industry that supplies millions of meals, and it continues to improve with new technology, like land-based farms and offshore systems. Let's talk about the big word we've been dancing around, astaxanthin. This is the special pigment that gives salmon their pinkish color. It's not a man-made dye injected into the fish. It's a naturally occurring compound found in the food chain. Astaxanthin belongs to the carotenoid family, the same group of natural pigments that make carrots orange and flamingos pink. Salmon need astaxanthin in their diet, just like they would get in the wild by eating algae, krill, and tiny shrimp. Here's how it works in nature. Tiny algae produce astaxanthin, and small crustaceans like krill eat the algae and load up on astaxanthin. Then salmon eat those crustaceans and accumulate astaxanthin in their flesh, turning it pink to red-orange over time. In the wild, this pigment even colors salmon eggs orange, which helps protect the eggs and provides nutrients to developing baby fish. On farms, salmon don't have access to krill or wild prey, so farmers make sure to add astaxanthin to the feed. Sometimes they use astaxanthin derived from natural sources like algae or crustacean shells, and other times they use synthetic astaxanthin made in a lab. Chemically, it's basically the same stuff. Think of it like vitamin C. Whether you get it from an orange or a pill, it's the same molecule doing the job. Most farmed salmon, over 98%, are given the lab-made astaxanthin because it's much cheaper. A few premium brands might use natural astaxanthin from algae, but this can be very expensive. In fact, astaxanthin is the most expensive part of salmon feed, making up about 20% of feed costs. Now, is astaxanthin safe? Yes, astaxanthin is approved by food safety agencies. The US FDA allows astaxanthin in salmon feed up to a certain amount, 80 milligram per kilogram of feed, to give the desired color, and considers it safe for consumers. The European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, also reviewed it and found that the maximum levels used in fish feed are of no concern for consumer safety. In fact, astaxanthin is sold as a health supplement for people. It's an energetic, potent antioxidant, meaning it helps prevent cell damage. Some studies show astaxanthin is many times stronger than vitamin E in antioxidant power. It has potential benefits for our eyes, skin, heart, and more. Though you get smaller doses just by eating salmon or shrimp. It's not there just for vanity or color. Salmon that get astaxanthin in their diet grow better and are healthier. This pigment supports their immune system and growth, and even helps them reproduce, lay healthy, viable eggs. Think of it like a vitamin for salmon. One aquaculture expert put this way: farmers add carotenoids to feed because salmon require it to grow properly, not just to turn them pink. So, when you see color added on a label, it could just as easily say nutrient added. Astaxanthin is a vitamin-like addition, not a paint. It's smart to ask, is farmed salmon safe to eat for the long term? And, are there any health differences or risks compared to wild salmon? According to food safety authorities and nutrition experts, salmon is salmon, a healthy choice. Here are a few common concerns addressed. In the early 2000s, there were reports that farmed salmon had higher levels of PCBs, industrial pollutants, than wild salmon due to ingredients in their feed. This raised alarm since PCBs can be harmful at high doses. The good news is the industry and regulators took action. There are now strict rules on what goes into salmon feed, greatly reducing contaminants. Recent studies show that while both wild and farmed salmon can contain trace amounts of PCBs or dioxins, because ocean fish are exposed to some pollution too, the levels are very low. In fact, the health benefits of eating salmon far outweigh the tiny risks of these trace contaminants. Think of it this way: you get so many good nutrients from salmon, protein, omega-3s, vitamins, that the net benefit is positive. Independent health agencies note that any contaminants in salmon are usually well below safety limits. Unlike large predator fish, like shark or swordfish, salmon, both farmed and wild, are low in mercury. The FDA and EPA include salmon on their list of best choices for low-mercury seafood that can be eaten a couple times a week. This holds true for farmed salmon as well. So you don't have the same mercury concerns with salmon as you might with some other fish. Farmed salmon are sometimes given antibiotics or other medicines if they get sick, which is a concern for some consumers. However, many of the biggest salmon farming countries have very strict regulations to prevent overuse of antibiotics. For example, Norway uses almost no antibiotics in salmon farming now, relying on vaccines and good practices instead. Chile had issues with higher antibiotic use in the past, but they have been working on reducing it as well. Any antibiotic that is used legally in aquaculture has a withdrawal time, meaning the fish cannot be harvested until the medicine has cleared its system, so that residues don't end up in your food. As for other additives, the main one is astaxanthin, the color nutrient, which, as we covered, is safe. While this is a bit outside our dinner plate focus, it's worth noting that some people worry about the environmental impact of salmon farms, waste, escaped fish, effect on wild stocks. The industry is aware of these issues and in many places has improved farming methods to address them. For instance, newer farms have better waste management and containment systems to prevent escapes, and there's ongoing research into sustainable feeds, using less wild fish in feed. Responsible farming aims to protect wild ecosystems while providing healthy fish for us to eat. From a consumer health perspective, These environmental measures also help ensure the fish you eat is healthy and raised in clean conditions. In summary, farm salmon is considered safe to eat and very nutritious. Major health organizations like the American Heart Association actually encourage people to eat fish like salmon twice a week for heart health benefits. Whether you choose wild or farmed, you're getting a food rich in high-quality protein, omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for your heart, brain, and inflammation control, and a variety of vitamins and minerals. Just pay attention to where your salmon comes from, sourcing from regions with strong safety regulations. Norway, Canada, US, UK can give extra peace of mind if you're concerned about things like antibiotics or pollutants. But overall, don't fear the farmed salmon. It's a healthy catch. By now you know that the pink color of salmon is no mystery or dirty trick. It comes from a natural pigment that salmon need in their diet, whether they're wild or farm-raised. The phrase dye added is misleading. It's really a nutrient added. Salmon farming has an interesting history from humble 1960s experiments to a global source of seafood today. Wild and farm salmon have their differences, but both can be enjoyed as part of a healthy diet. If you love salmon for its taste and health benefits, you can feel good about that. Experts say eating a couple of servings of salmon or other fatty fish per week is a fantastic way to get omega-3s and protein. So the next time someone claims your salmon dinner is painted or poisonous, you can share the real story. The salmon's colorful secret isn't a bottle of dye. It's in the algae and little shrimp that start the food chain. It's in the care farmers take to feed their fish a balanced diet. It's in the science that shows astaxanthin and omega-3s are good for us. In the end, that beautiful coral pink on your plate is all natural. Enjoy your meal and stay informed.